Right, the last one. We've got to the end of the tape. Number 10. The reason I left this one to last is because it's an advanced concept. So first of all, it's not that important to most people for a long time, but it's also going to take a long time for you to internalize this, and probably a few years, and truly understand it. So I left it to last so you can think about it a little bit, right? This one is paradoxical. It's simultaneously practical, but it's simultaneously philosophical. And it is, you have to establish what your goal is with gambling. What's your goal with gambling? So I'll explain it a little bit deeper. Most people will come into the gambling game and they will say, my goal is to become a millionaire and retire off my gambling winnings. That's what most people will say their goal is. But actually, most people are lying. And I'll explain why, right? You always do what you want to do in life, right? You never make a decision that you don't want to do. At the time that you made it, you wanted to do it more than any other decision. When you eat a donut, even though you know you're trying to lose weight, you did want to eat that donut. You could say, oh, actually, no, I just wanted to lose weight, but I just caved in. At that moment, you wanted to eat the donut more than you wanted to lose weight. And I'm going to relate it back to gambling. This is why you have to really get clear on your goal. So a lot of people will say they want to retire off their sports betting winnings, right? But if they experience a big loss, most people will start chasing their losses, placing minus EV bets in the process and not protecting their bankroll at all, even though they know it's the bad idea. If they really wanted to retire off sports betting, they wouldn't chase their losses because they know that it's not the best thing to do long term. They would save their units, they would save their bankroll for another day. So even though that those people would tell you that they want to retire off sports betting, actually no, they don't. Otherwise they wouldn't have done that. The desire to chase that thrill and chase their losses was more than the desire to retire off sports betting, right? So they wanted to do that more than they wanted to retire. But they would tell you that their goal is to retire. The truth is, most people are just gambling for a thrill. Now, that can be changed. When I started, I was gambling for a thrill. Well, I think when I first started, I actually gambled to make money. But then it quickly got, I got sidetracked and I went down the wrong route. And then I actually started to gamble just for a thrill. But then I brought that back and now I'm gambling strictly to make money, right? I still have fun with it. Doesn't mean you have to have no fun, no entertainment at all. But my goal is to make a hell of a lot of money. My goal is to be wealthy. So you can always bring it back, right? So if you're honest with yourself and realize that, no, my goal actually is just to bet for a thrill. And even if you don't know this consciously, you can understand this by seeing what you do when you lose, seeing how emotional you get. Are you really, really enjoying watching the fight or watching a bet too much? That means you're not actually gambling for the right reasons. You're just gambling for a thrill. Otherwise, you would be able to become unemotional, right? But taking it back to the goal, you need to sit down and think, what is your actual goal, right? As you get older, your risk tolerance will decrease. The amount of risks and swings that you're going to take as you get older will decrease. So you need to know your true goal because you need to understand what your betting strategy should be, right? So if you really get clear on what your goal is, the philosophical part, what type of person you are, then it will allow you to place your bets accordingly and change your betting strategy going forward, which is the practical part. So I'll tell you a little story about what my goal was and what my goal is before I end the video. So I always knew I wanted to get wealthy from sports betting. I knew it was possible. I saw other people do it. I had big wins myself. I knew it was possible and I just wanted to get money in general, right? So this was the avenue I went down for most of my life. And I succeeded, right? I became very wealthy on most people's scale, right? In my head, I'm not wealthy and I still need to make more money. But most people would think that I am wealthy and I got basically all of my wealth from gambling, right? Now, a few years ago, I made the decision to split my bankroll and start placing very large wagers on very specific bets that I called my big and max bets. You will see me posting about them quite often over the last few years, or since I started really, if you've been following my content. And I started to place massive, massive wagers on MMA fights, right? Way more than I've ever done. So I've bet $50,000 on MMA fights before. I've bet plenty of times, I bet $20,000. And the reason I did that was because I got very clear with myself about what my goal is with gambling. I had a conversation with myself and I said, James, like, you're doing well gambling, you're making decent money, monthly, you know, it's providing you with what you need to live and stuff. But I didn't want to just live off my income. I wanted to become filthy rich, basically, from gambling. And I went about 23-0 on my big and max bets. And I thought, look, I know it's not a massive sample size, but 23 wins and no losses. It's a big enough sample size for me at this time to go very, very heavy risk mode. And because I chatted to myself and my goal was to become very wealthy. If my goal was just to live off gambling, live off my gambling career for the rest of my life, I would never have gone super risky and placed $50,000 bets because it was way above what my bankroll was. I've had times where I've put 30% of my bankroll on one spot, right? Which is way too much. But the goal for me was to get super rich, so I had to do that. Now, obviously, I split my bankroll. I kept a certain bankroll where, okay, if everything goes tits up with my new big bankroll, then at least I'll have some money to maneuver. I still have a bankroll to fall back on, and I can still live and maneuver barely, but I can do it, right, with that bankroll. So I was a little bit smart. I didn't just place all my money. But with my big bankroll, I started placing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bets, right? And it paid off for me. That's how I earned so much money, basically. That was like the best run of my life. I started winning so much money, and it doesn't take many $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 bets to turn that into big amounts of money, right? So in hindsight, that probably wasn't the smartest decision, but it was what I wanted to do at the time based on the goal I had with gambling. If you're fit, but I was like mid-20s at the time, right? I take a lot of risks. I take a lot of risks in general. My name is literally Gambler JB, right? So, you know, on my other Twitter account, you can follow me, Gambler JB. I'm a gambler. That's what I do. I take risks in life. I have always done. I always will do. Maybe when I get older, my risk tolerance will drop down. But like, if I was 60 years old, I wouldn't have took as many risks, right? My goal would be different. If I had children, my goal would be different, right? So there comes a point in time in your gambling career where you're gonna have to sit down and have a conversation with yourself. What do you want out of this game? And what type of person you are and what type of stress you can handle. And that will determine your betting strategy and your betting process moving forward. It's a very important one, guys. I know it seems like a little bit philosophical and up in the air, but we're talking about full-time professional gambling here. We're not just talking about making a little bit of money on the side, which is fine if that's your goal, but this whole overarching point is a lot deeper than just MMA betting, right? And that's why I left it to last. So yeah, I don't want to scare anybody off, right? Because you don't have to make this deal, you don't have to make this goal or this conversation until you're many, many years profitable. I didn't think about this. I mean, obviously I knew I wanted to make a lot of money from young, but I only split my bankroll a few years ago and started making massive bets, right? It's only a few years ago, 3 years or something like that. So, I mean, I was in gambling for 12 years or something before I had this big conversation with myself. So I was already profitable for like 5 years before I decided to have this conversation and split my bankroll. So you don't have to worry about this yet. 99% of people watching this video are probably not even long-term profitable. So get yourself long-term profitable first before you start thinking about this. Because I don't want to scare you off. And so many people ask me questions, like people who have not even signed up to my service yet, and they haven't even made money themselves from gambling, and they're asking me, oh, how do I stop the bookies from limiting me? Or they'll ask me, how do I create multiple accounts and stuff? I'm like, mate, you've literally not earned one drop of money off gambling, and you're telling me how to avoid being limited by the books and stuff. You're broke. Your account is in negative, and you want to know how professional gamblers get other accounts. Like, it's just stupid. So don't have to worry about this so much for 99% of people, but I did want to put it in because I wanted you to understand that you have to have a conversation with yourself at some point in time when it comes to gambling about what your goals are. So that's it, guys. All 10 MMA betting principles done. As I said, hopefully this helps you. Hopefully you've enjoyed them. but hopefully they help you earn more money, which is the ultimate goal of this right here, is to earn you more money. If you implement all of these principles, your results will skyrocket. It's literally impossible. So it's one thing having the knowledge, but it's another thing having the implementation. And I'll create content on that on the future, the actual implementation of these principles. And I'll also put out my other 100 betting principles at some point in the future out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, boys. Good luck.